Blessed day, soul family, earth family, welcome back. Hope earth school isn't getting too challenging for you. I know at times it can feel like we're getting the lesson and the test at the same time, which can cause some arousal, shall we say, or stimulation. Today, it's Taiji Tuesday from the Martial Mystic 2026 calendar series. And today we look at Tai Chi, Tai Chi Chuan, Tai Chi philosophy, Tai Chi practices, Tai Chi skills and drill, cultivation, preparation, and spiritual growth and enlightenment. Today we're going to do something fun and interesting. So uh, let me know what you think. First of all, what are your experiences, ideas, concerns and questions around AI? And do you use AI? I have this essay that I wrote about artificial intelligence. I may not have written it yet, but I do need to. There's this idea that I'm working on that nature's intelligence is actually the real intelligence, and the construct and the matrix and the social conditioning that we tirelessly try to adhere to is the artificial intelligence. Mind's constructs, man's constructs, and man's paradigms are the artificial intelligence. We need to transcend that to find our nature, our true spirit, our soul's message, and see what we can gain from connecting to the earth and to the heaven as real intelligence. Furthermore, let's talk about the five regulations in Tai Chi Chuan. Wu Tiao, body, breath, mind, chi, and spirit. Our internal practices and our external practices, whether you're going from external to internal or internal to external, they have that common thread and ladder, if you will: the body, the breath, the mind, the energy, the spirit. My partner, Nona, she talks about the breath body as a physical body as material, physical, manifested body, breath body as a body itself, the mind body, chi body, and spiritual body. So she talks about those things, and she frames it in that way for herself. We talk about in martial arts the regulation, the regulating, the interfacing and interacting, and skill development. Slowly over time, practicing one step, one stance, one punch, one strike, slowly but surely in ingraining it into the body mind atmosphere so that it becomes second nature, and you can recall it without even have to think about it. The body memory acts on its own without one having to think. And we call this regulating of no regulating. So for example, modern day example might be back to childhood breathing, or deep abdominal breathing, or diaphragmatic breathing. This is one thing that you could take into everyday life as a Qigong practice, regulation, and skill, so that without even thinking about it, your breath, nervous system is, and psychological center and well-being is um, maintained in a smooth, calm, slow, steady, regulated way. The theory and the idea would be that your psychological centering, emotional life, and emotional body would be less stimulated up or less stimulated down to those highs and the low states. Understanding that breath keeps a smooth, neutral state through the external and internal stimulations of life and living. Modern example. So, just in doing some research, it's also the five regulations comes from old Chinese, also musical theory. And then when you get into the traditional Chinese medicine theory, there's also the five elements, earth, water, spirit, and metal and wood, and how those pertain to the five elements. So, what this does and what this can do is help us expand our awareness, our thinking, and of who we are, where we come from, and our scope of this reality, our understanding of this reality, um, and to help kind of stretch our minds, maybe dilute any um, constricting modern day rigid thinking as well. And that's a little bit of the function of this ancient knowledge and technology, is that it can help us to see things the way the ancestors saw them, albeit maybe sometimes primitive, but also more connected to the cycles, natural cycles of the earth systems, the weather systems, the cosmological systems, one's body's systems, as we understand everything to be in cycles and to have a growing, a peaking, and a dying off and a falling, and so on and so forth. Without further ado, let's get into this show and tell, bring your AI to work today. So, what I'm doing is I am proposing an idea and thinking, looking to see what AI thinks about my idea. So, my idea is that in terms of modern definition, the body, the breath, the mind, the chi, and the spirit, how would I try to convey this to reach newer generations, given today's trends, terminology, and lexicon within the health and wellness um, sectors, right? So, body, breath, mind, chi, and spirit. The root of this exploration and idea came from the term movement medicine, as regulating the body and Tai Chi's effects within this realm. Movement medicine. The next, breath. Slow, low and slow breath work. A name that I gave to this was mellow ocean breath. Right. The next is the mind. Psychological centering. Finding agency and control. The chi. Meridian clearing and vessel flushing, reminding ourselves of natural systems and river ecology. And finally, the fifth regulation, spirit, as unity practice, transcendence, finding transcendence, and humanity. So, my question now to AI, and I did a little there's been a little pre conversation about five regulations, its history, and whatnot. And um, so I guess it's been a little bit primed to think more in the TCM realm. But my question is, moving forward, I'm curious how you might make the five regulations relevant in modern times given health and wellness trends. I'm curious how you might name them and describe their functions, the five regulations. I have written down ideas, but I'd like to hear yours. So I'm just going to copy and paste what I've gathered, and and propose the question and propose my idea. So let's see. Okay, and it's set to thinking. And let's see what it says. This is just doing something a little fun, interesting, and different here. Refining, defining, slow thinking. Your modern translations are spot on, AI says. Of course, we know that it's often maybe a little bit more supportive or positive. The, they bridge the gap between esoteric tradition and actionable biohacking by framing the five regulations as a hierarchy of internal systems management. By using terms like agency and river ecology, you move the conversation from performing a form to stewarding a biological system. Here's how we might further refine those descriptions to align with modern health trends while keeping the seed to bloom ecological ecological integrity. Oh, that's right. I forgot. I was asking about um, the cycles of from seed to bloom. The modernized five regulations might be the body, structural resilience as the soil, movement medicine, functional rooting. Oh yeah, the concept of eating bitter. So it's a Chinese concept of um, how medicine and in the wild and in nature, often when we eat herbs as medicine, it has a bitter taste to it. In addition, when we get scolded by our teacher or corrected by our teacher, it has a bitter taste to it. So there's a question in Chinese culture about, can you eat bitter? So breath, the atmospheric change, that's interesting. The climate, the mellow ocean, the parasympathetic tuning, low and slow. And the reason that I like to have the low and slow concept is because when we look at cooking and exercise, you can have a high flame skillet or grill and you throw your steak on it or your stir-fried vegetables. And with that high flame, you get that sound of the tss, boom, 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 and you're turning, you're stirring because the flame, you're getting such a high flame and heat that you're turning everything and flipping it and getting all surface areas as you can. In contrast, low and slow is the oven cooking, the slow oven cooking, or the what would you call it? The crock pot style of cooking as well, or the steam style of cooking. And in that way, the low and slow breath is a little bit more descriptive characteristic of Tai Chi practice as well, where in terms of sprinting would be like that high flame heat, and Tai Chi would be the crock pot cooking. So mind as cognitive agency, the direction. That's interesting. The direction. Psychological centering and intentionality, finding the locus of control. Psychological centering, why I came up with this concept was because of the physical practice that Tai Chi gives us, where we do balance centering, solo, like standing on bricks, or partner training, challenging each other's balance. The and the Chi, the electric vitality, the irrigation, it says here. I I I use the term river ecology. Oh, it says fascial hydration. Interesting. The concept meridian clearing and vessel flushing because of the idea of removing your blockages for smooth flow and circulation of your vessels. And then why I wanted to say, or of your meridians, and what I wanted to say about vessels was vessels are more of the large body, think of pond or think of like a tank or a storage that gets utilized by our meridians, like the limbs. The vessels are, think of the vessels more in the torso, as large as the large oceans of energy. And then in the limbs, we start to have the idea and the concept of streams and rivers, those slower or those a thinner, um, or rather thinning from wide to narrow um, pathways, where the large storehouses of chi will get flushed through. Once that energy moves out, it gets replenished by the internal systems. Um, a lot of it has to do with hormones, post-birth chi, the food and the water, and the liquids that we intake, and the mind cultivation and frequency attunement. So that's why I thought of vessel flushing and meridian clearing for chi. Spirit, the last one was collective resonance, the canopy. That's interesting. As unity practice and transcendent awareness, um, where we have in terms of the state of being, Tai Chi gives you, upon given time, energy, and continued practice, you have a transcendent experience. You could have a transcendent experience by just doing a exercise for 10 minutes. You can have a transcendent experience with each session, or with an immersive experience like over a weekend or at a retreat or something like that. But then if we think about it over time, the transcendent experience is a consciousness and a state of being that is more closely associated with spirituality, divine recognition, um, reverence, high regard for oneself, others, interconnectedness of the things around us and within us, and as we lay our eyes and lay our ears upon things, finding um, sacred interconnection with all that exists. And because the final goal of spiritual cultivation for Tai Chi Chuan, as it's rooted in monastic practices, is one's own spirit blending in with the spirit of nature. And then and so there's a few different things. So we can think about that physical or that spiritual goal of Tai Chi Chuan, where uh one's individual spirit, the like a river returning back to the deep ocean of the soul family. Another way to think about the canopy uh, and the spirit and the interconnectedness and humanity is the heart consciousness, and the the middle Dantian, understanding the small universe in the large universe, small universe being heaven, heaven, upper Dantian, man, humankind in the middle Dantian, earth in the lower Dantian, and the reunification of soul spirit again to soul family, right? Understanding upper Dantean, but in the lower realm here, in terms of humankind and human uh, finding humanity, the track, the vision to maintain um, the perspective of brotherly, sisterly love and familial harmony and interconnectedness with all humans, all humankind. And then in the earth realm, the lower Dantian, our physical body, our base needs, understanding that this physical body, if it is, as it is separate, again, going back to unity, as it is separate, this physical body has a spiritual body as well that we want to harmonize and bring together, understanding that there's the yin, immaterial mind and spirit that can harmonize and coexist with the body's physical needs, its physical desires, its physical manifestations. So we have to find that harmony there in terms of morality of mind and deed, which we often talk about um, in terms of Tai Chi, wellness. conflict resolution, and even mental health. So, a little fun thing there. Let's see if it has more to add. I'll include, oops, I didn't want that. I'll include more. Let's see. The framework makes the classics feel like a history lesson and more like a systems operations manual. Would you, so, and then it asked me if I would like more. So, and that's the idea and the concept in terms of understanding the classics, understanding philosophy, understanding ancient cultures, understanding modalities and systems that are thousands of years old. Our job is to, with each generation, help to keep the modalities alive, spread the knowledge, and then also find its relevancy within the uh, current generations and trends of the time. So that's what I like to do and what I hope to do and what I envision happening with this series. Again, remember that going back to this, the idea and the concept of this series was last year's three phases that stuck with me from 2025: mental health, mental well-being, and unity consciousness. So transcending the divide and division, polarity, and then dispute resolution systems. So more of an earthly, intellectual way to maintain the unity consciousness and also understand the daily balancing of mental and physical framework and understanding choices and decisions and responding in today's challenging world. So that's the root of this daily series. And so tomorrow in wellness, we're going to expand more on this idea of Qigong for relationship. And I explore also how Qigong is in and of itself an exploration into the concept of relationship. And as a basic understanding, relationship is a good bridge and a good modern word to use to help to understand these, bring these concepts to life. Similarly, in yoga, which historically we've understand to mean union, what are some of the layers of meaning that we can extrapolate from that idea of union? And in this way, the martial mystic exploration is similar. So I think that is it, but we're going to look at the Tai Chi movements in our calendar series that we are working on here in getting into March week 3 soon. So these are the movements that are coming up. This is week 3. I'm going to turn off the audio there. We've got footwork. So if you've been listening to my mental health series, you've been watching and understanding my process of explaining what's called the bottom up approach in regards to mental health, in that regulating, interacting, and interfacing with the lower body, and here it's the lowest realm with the feet and the legs, seeing the downstream positive effects as from the lower to the upper, the the mental health effects and positive states of consciousness and mood. So we talk about Tai Chi in that way in the mental in the on Mental Health Monday. But this is yeah, we're doing a little bit of crane spreads wings. So we're also in spring. So we look at we're coming into spring. So on Wellness Wednesday, we're looking at the systems, going back to understanding natural systems, natural order, and harmonizing one's life, living, and choices with the natural systems. For example, we work during the day when the sun's up. because that's when our body wants to rise. It wants to rise with the sun and cultivate and be productive with the sun. And then when the sun rests, we also rest as well. Similarly, when it comes to the seasons, since we're coming out of winter and into the spring, we are now starting to go from seed to sprout and a dormant state, and our energy has been quite more contracted and dormant as well. And now we're opening up our vessels and our streams so we can have a physical blossoming and blooming of our cultivated energy, and then also in terms of our life and our living and the blossoming of our projects as we move and interact and offer and contribute in the world. And then we'd also talk about on Resolution Thursday the the interfacing and exchanging as we all search to contribute to the world within our own blooms. Sometimes blooms can seemingly conflict with one another, and when we look at Resolution Thursday, we look at how we can, using Tai Chi philosophy, not meet force with force, but learn to harmonize. So we look at communication styles, methods, mediation skills, and practices that mirror Tai Chi harmonizing and Tai Chi interacting and interfacing energies. And then Fearless Friday, we summarize things and look at, okay, well, what decisions and choices, are we making? And if you're wondering, this is filmed here in Northern California at the retreat center where I lived, trained, and studied with Dr. Yang. So that is the calendar series. If you'd like to be a part of that calendar series, you can reach out. You can find me here at yinyangtaichi.org, and you can find my courses, and you can book a call as well, a free 30-minute call. Just look at the when there's a time and a date that's best suits you based on my availability, and I'd love to hear from you. You also have a free course with Yin Yang Tai Chi here, which I think is a peace movement, a literal peace movement, and you could even get the book there as well. So lots of good stuff to dive in there. That's it for today, and really appreciate your time, your attention, and your willingness to hear me out here and have some fun also with AI. And I do understand, there's some concerns with AI. We're we're learning, aren't we? So until next time, may your chi flow smoothly, and also don't forget to embrace the woo. We'll be back tomorrow with Wellness Wednesday again, looking at spring and um, and more movement as well.